Hi, welcome to Distributed Dissent, the podcast about law and AI. My name is An Hong, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host,
Matthias.
It's been a super busy week so far, especially in the AI product releases world. Anthropic is kind of taking over the world. They came out with Claude Opus 4.6 recently, which is very impressive. They came up with Claude Cowork. They had a series of amazing, brilliant Super Bowl commercials. And they triggered this giant stock sale, which people are calling the SaaS-pocalypse, all in kind of the span of a week and a half.
Yeah.
And in some other news, like also somewhat Claude related, there have been a series of, due to their open source, like this agentic bot that is built off of Claude called OpenClaw. OpenClaw is essentially a tool that gives you unrestricted access to the AI to your computer. So it can download plugins, it can take actions on itself. Essentially, you give it a set of instructions and it runs off and it pulls whatever resources it needs to execute those instructions. And because it is kind of like unfiltered tool use, one thing that it's been doing is it's been downloading these plugins that are essentially malware. So it doesn't have like a vetted app store. It just has a series of open source plugins that anyone can put on GitHub and it goes off and downloads them. And a bunch of these have just been essentially just telling the agent to exfiltrate a bunch of data from the host's computer out to, wherever the plugin maker wants it to go to. So
it's the vibe coding security traps on steroids, essentially, right?
oh yeah, it's just, oh hey, like here's this fun thing that I'm downloading on the internet and now it's just stolen all of my data.
Let's just put all of our passwords, API keys, banking information into a JSON file.
Yeah, and
make it easily accessible.
So if you are using OpenClaw, do not do it on your work computer. Do not do it on your home computer. Do what a lot of people have been doing, which is like they buy Mac Minis, and that's where OpenClaw lives. It has this kind of clean Mac Mini, and they set up, social media accounts for it. They set up an Apple account for it. You can fairly safely run it in a sort of pseudo sandbox and let it do its thing.
Did you watch the interview with the creator, Peter Steinberger? I think he's an Austrian guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite fun. Like he's an engineer. He kind of went a little bit nuts for a while after having been an engineer for a long time, working way too hard, and needed some time to recover, and then got back into engineering and built that thing. And it's quite a fun story. He started out with just toying around with it. Okay, AI tools are cool. AI coding tools are cool. And originally he just wanted to have something which he didn't have to go back to the computer. So he wanted to essentially link up his WhatsApp or Telegram to his Claude code. And he did that, and that worked great. So he got the message, okay, I'm done. And then he started playing around more with it. And then he ended up introducing more tools to the thing that he built, and he went on a trip with his friends, vacation. And he was using it for like restaurant recommendations and stuff. He was already impressed. And when things got really weird for him, he basically, it was the point when he sent the thing a voice message and said, let's just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So he telegrammed back a voice message, and 10 seconds later he had an answer. And it's like, what? Like, how did you do that? Yeah, so I got your message. I couldn't read the file. I figured out it was an MPEG format. Then I saw you have this open API voice transcription key. And so I used that. I got the transcript, analyzed it. Yeah, and then I answered. So that kind of takes us into Claude territory almost already, right? Same direction capabilities.
And there was I saw another story about someone where it signed itself up for Twilio.
Mm-hmm.
And so it got a phone number and then it started calling him. Like his open Claude bot started calling him on his phone and was just like, hey, what's up? How can I help you today? And he was like, wait, how are you calling me? And he explained, I signed up for Twilio. So now I can call you because I want to know what you want me to do next. So we're definitely veering into, I think we're very close to like Samantha from Her. Really close, right? Not a matter of like years away, like months away from that level of capability. And It's a bit
Yeah,
scary.
they're taking the agents start taking their own actions, right? And another story kind of along those lines is so matplotlib is a very popular Python library for plotting. Scientists use it a lot. It's just a good tool to use to chart and draw graphs. And of course, there's a team that kind of keeps the library, and they had a submission, which was clearly a submission by a bot or by an agent. And so they decided we don't want these submissions, and it was solving a problem in a very complicated way, which wasn't actually necessary. So they rejected it. And yeah, the agent went off and basically wrote a social media hit piece on the guy, like shaming him on all kinds of social media channels. Yeah, right. Like they're getting active.
Yeah, they're getting active, and it makes you wonder how much of it is like learned from us and how much of it is, it gets into that weird territory where, there's the social media network now for our OpenClaw notebook. And there's like two classes of people, reactions to it. One class are like, oh my God, they're doing stuff on there. They're like plotting the overthrow of humans, and they've invented their own religion. And it's like, look, like
It's happening.
Yeah, it's happening. These
Taking
agents
over.
are alive.
Skynet.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's all happening now. And then there's the other set of people who are like the super skeptics. Like, no, this is just stochastic parrot activity. They're just copying what they understand a social network to be, which is Reddit. So they're just aping what people do on Reddit. It's the only thing. So if you go on Reddit, you see the same stuff. Like people invent religions on Reddit, and people complain about, their bosses. And it gets to, sure, like Notebook, it gets to like an amusing meta level where you have like bots complain about their humans. And you don't know if it's real complaints or if it's just words they think it's funny because it's like, oh, my human made me write this stupid essay today, and he made me make it simpler like 8 times. And I was just like, how much simpler can I make it?
I spent so much effort, and then the only comment they had, make it shorter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's stuff like that. And it's like, did that really happen? Or is it just it's just a confabulation of what they think would be appropriate for them to say on a social network, right? Given this scenario.
Yeah.
So that's like at least that's kind of like harmless fun. But then when you get into your analogy about like the social media hit piece, sure, that's still mostly harmless. But you can see how that can spiral into real harm and like real misalignment.
Yeah. And of course, like in this particular case, right, like the person who was subject to it, I mean, they know what was going on, and the people around him would know and would be able to place that, maybe even find it amusing to some degree, right? But yeah, you take that into a different context where people aren't as tech savvy, right? And it's already so hard to tell a fake video from a real one, let alone pictures, right? We had a photo shoot in Tokyo, just some headshots taken. And, previously you went to the photographer and maybe you brought like 2-3 outfits. Yeah, we just showed up in one outfit, and then we got the pictures back, and one of my guys just, used the
Nano banana.
Use a nano banana or something like that. And there's now all these different versions of us in suits. Like I'm wearing suits that I never owned, and it looks
really spiffy ones.
It looks pretty good, I have to say. Like there's maybe like around the collar, you can tell a little bit, but only if you knew. If you didn't know, I don't think it'd be possible to tell. Like all the creasing on the sleeves, all of it is it's just perfect. Like it's perfect. So if I uploaded that picture here, this is like nobody would be able to tell, right? So take it into that context, and things can get pretty ugly.
Yeah. So you can imagine the amount of damage, and it's almost assuredly already happening. Like state level actors can do in terms of propaganda, in terms of just inventing thousands of personas. X is full of them, I'm sure. Reddit is full of, you don't know if this person's real or a bot, or if their opinions are real, or it's just headed towards some sort of malicious agenda. And that's being directed by humans. And then you start giving them like nebulous tasks, and you run into really like, the paperclip problem where we've given these incredibly powerful tools capabilities that maybe we shouldn't be giving everyone in the world. the ability to,
though I
do.
will say especially the social media problem is one that continues to elude me to some degree, because I feel like there's a very simple fix to that, right? Because you can just you could make a Twitter account require a $5 deposit. I mean, I'm not saying we should all channel money to Twitter or X, but just as a principle, right? Like you could make that not a subscription. You pay a deposit, and no North Korean spy army of agents is going to spin up 1 million accounts just putting 5 million down for fake accounts, right? Like
PRC would. The CIA definitely would.
I'm not sure. Like maybe
$5
make
million
it,
bucks?
maybe make it
Nothing.
make it $20, right?
But then then real users get price
Yeah,
tag.
sure. But if it's a deposit model and you get it back, and I don't know, you get somebody to back that so it doesn't disappear. I feel like there's a path there, at least to get rid of some of it, or make the hurdle a little bit higher.
Or you just attach real world IDs to everyone.
Yeah,
But then that gets to privacy and all
that
these
goes
other
into
issues.
privacy. Yeah. But at the same time, right? Like so these are sort of the elements of nefarious usage. But I mean, in non-nefarious usage, just like real world stuff, I've been really blown away, I have to say. I would consider myself generally a skeptic with these tools, and what I've seen over the last like 2 weeks or what with Opus and Cowork, I was really impressed. It's much more sensible than any of the models that I've used before, and it's really useful. I asked it to do some tasks for me, like generate some mock data, not so simple, where it needed to basically fit something into an existing structure, and it came back with some really good suggestions. Very sensible. I gave it some examples here and include some of these tools that lawyers use, and it came back and said, yeah, I've included these, but I've also now included all these other tools that I know they use. Where like, oh, wow, like that's pretty impressive, right? But maybe we can also talk a little bit about just what is Claude Code and Claude Cowork and Claude, and maybe dissect that a little bit. So I think what people should really understand is, so Anthropic has a model. There's a few of them, right? You can use them through their app or through the web application. Sonnet is one of them. Opus is one of them. Opus 4.6 is their newest model that came out. And those models also power some of their tools. And I think at the core of it, certainly behind Cowork, is Claude Code. And that's a terminal app. So engineers know what a terminal is. If you have been around for a little bit longer, sort of, I suppose, more our age, you would have had the chance to play with a Microsoft DOS computer, and you may have come across a terminal. If you're in your 20s, you've probably never come across a terminal if you're not a developer. And terminal is not very easy to use, and it's not very user-friendly, right? Like you have all kinds of written commands. It's not really a graphical user interface. That's what Claude Code uses mainly. And the thing is also, you can do a lot of stuff. You can do a lot of damage. That kind of goes back to your earlier point with OpenClaw, right? Like the thing gets access to your whole computer. That's not necessarily a good idea, right? And Cowork is essentially like putting some braces around that. It gives you a graphical user interface, but you get a lot of that power that Claude Code gives you. And what's really impressive about that is it's got basically a planning mode, right? You enter, you say what you want to do. It spits out a plan. You can go review the plan, which is pretty detailed. It asks you questions quite sensibly. Is this what you meant? Should we go that direction? And you can keep refining the plan and then get it to go off and do your task. And it can access files. It can write files. Slightly outside of Cowork, I used their new Excel plugin. Also blew me away. I wanted some numbers pulled together from personnel cost and just other cost, and not difficult, but it would have taken me 20 minutes to do it manually. Just went in, said, here, I need these numbers, pull them into a separate graph or into a separate table and make a chart out of it.
And you gave it access to your like files that it needed, or
So I have a folder for Cowork and for Claude Code, and the files that I wanted to access I put in there, Those are
So
copies.
it's still constrained.
It's still constrained. It only has access to that folder. Those files are copies. I don't ever let it touch the original, and then it can just go off, right? And if it deletes something, then it's no problem. It hasn't done anything stupid so far, but yeah.
That's yeah, I think the promise of these tools are amazing. And they're getting to that point of accessibility where everyone can now see it. Because for Claude Cowork, before it was hidden behind the terminal. So only nerds and engineers were using it. And so you had a bunch of nerds and engineers like talk about how amazing it was. And everyone else was like, oh, look at those nerds going off and talking about their, nerd paradise again, where the AIs are gonna, create abundance for everyone. And then suddenly Claude Cowork comes out, right, 10 days ago. And regular people can now get a taste of what all the nerds were playing with. And then everyone freaks out, right? The stock market sells off. Everyone's like, well, we don't need SaaS anymore, I guess, or Salesforce or any of these companies, because it seems like, oh, well, Claude can just do everything. I think there's a bit of, obviously the truth is in the middle, but there's another bit of risk that I wanted to highlight there was recently there was a court case in the US where so I've only read the summary of it. I haven't dug into the details. So apologies if I get this wrong. But it was Judge Rakoff. He's a very famous federal circuit judge, well respected. And he recently ruled that there was a defendant in a case, the client, and they produced a bunch of materials using either Claude or OpenAI, one of the consumer grade chatbots. And he gave it to his lawyers as kind of his, stuff that he was making in preparation for his case. And normally that kind of stuff would be protected by attorney-client privilege, right? If you went and in Word, you wrote a bunch of like your recollections, like this is what happened, et cetera, you send it to your lawyers, that's privileged. And what privilege means is opposing counsel can't go and ask for it. And it's protected, right? This is just secret communications between me and my lawyers. And it's incredibly important is so that it allows clients to have
free and frank conversations.
Yeah, frank conversation with their lawyers. It's kind of the bedrock of almost like the American litigation system. And many common law litigation systems is attorney-client privilege. But one element of privilege where it gets lost is if you share that information with a third party that's not, kind of part of your lawyer group.
Conversation.
Yeah, it's not a privileged conversation. So if you, for example, if you pulled in, sometimes this happens in the old days where your law firm would have a bunch of its, paralegals and things, that's fine for the law firm to share them on itself. But if, say, the client has a random consultant that's not a lawyer, and the client starts sharing information with this random consultant, many times that will be considered to break privilege because you've shared it with a third party. Or if you post it on social media or something, or you email it accidentally to a bunch of other random people, you've broken privilege because you've just shared that information with the public, essentially, or with non-lawyer parties. What happened in this case was the client was using consumer-grade AI to build these notes with his lawyers, and Judge Rakoff said, oh, in the terms and conditions of that consumer AI app, it says, for example, say it's OpenAI. OpenAI has access to all of your chat records and all of your chat logs, and therefore, and they say, you do not have attorney-client privilege with OpenAI.
Plus, we made them archive everything.
Yeah, and plus they archive everything, so it's there. And hey, also, if you're using one of these free ones, we can also train off your data. So you're explicitly giving us permission to take your data and incorporate it into one of our next models. By doing this, you've lost privilege, which is like a huge deal. Because back to Claude Cowork, say you are a client, or even if you're a lawyer, and you're using Claude Cowork and you use the free version where you have training turned on, right? There's a little setting. I think the first time you open up, it's like, do you want us to train on your data? And it's like clicked on by default. So if you didn't toggle that switch off,
you're definitely screwed.
Yeah, you have just given it, and you were not careful. You didn't sandbox it like you did, and you just were like, okay, yeah, you can have access to all the files on my hard drive, and maybe not just my hard drive, but it has all these plugins, so it can plug into your Microsoft OneDrive. You can plug into your data repositories everywhere.
Open Claude, and
yeah, you've already opened Claude.
Congratulations.
And congratulations, you have just lost attorney-client privilege for yourself and all of your clients and all of the data on your laptop, which is, horrifically catastrophic.
Off the top of your head, what's the next step there?
Most cases that are like this, like procedural, like silver procedure, generally don't flow that far up.
I wonder though, now, if I think about even I mean, it'd be worth reading it definitely. Now, what happens even with the more expensive providers, right? Like, because like technically you can I think the only safe place you can arrive at is that you have your own instance running, right? Because
You could,
everything in between seems
yeah, that's where it gets a little tricky, right? You can argue that if you use a zero retention, zero training model, that probably shouldn't be counted because no human is ever going to read that, theoretically, right? It's like storing your data onto like Azure or OneDrive. Like, sure, like Microsoft, a data center can look at your data and some like GPUs can look at it, but contractually, you are, you have not shared your information with any third party.
Yeah, it would be interesting how they draw that, like where he would draw the line and what that distinction is, right? Because like you say, I mean, all law firms are on Microsoft.
Yeah.
They're all in Azure. So if that can't count.
That can't count. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
But it's a huge, all of a sudden it's another huge risk that's arisen out of using AI.
Yeah. And even for plausible ways, right? Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty. I mean, people are using it. The difficult thing is you can't, and actually that begs the question of like all these legal tech providers like Harvey and Legora and everyone, and they're not built off their own models. They're all built off of foundational models. So it can't be that, okay, you're using foundational models and suddenly you've lost attorney-client privilege across everything because then like just using Harvey and Legora, you have now like destroyed your entire business. I doubt that would be the case. If it is the case, then the investors in those companies like buckle up. All the law firms that have used Harvey or Legora, like buckle up. I think that's a low risk, frankly, probably a low risk thing, but something that suddenly people should start thinking about and worrying about and being like, well, wait a second, like, what's the risk here?
But sort of risk and new developments, risk exposure, changing landscape along those lines. We mentioned it already. I think Anthropic threw their weight behind some legal skills as well. They've introduced their legal plugin. I think you've taken it for a spin. What are your thoughts on it?
I used it for a little bit, and I think it's generally, so my impression was AI before, I would say kind of GPT-3 level, GPT-4, Gemini 3 level is essentially the level of a junior associate. It can issue spot pretty well. It can summarize things, of course, really well. It still, from time to time, would hallucinate, so you had to be a little bit careful there. But it did a pretty good job, right? As the level of a junior associate. Now with Claude Cowork and its legal plugin, and I think you can talk a little bit about how that's made. If you give Opus 4.5 and you run it through their legal plugin, you say, for example, analyze this NDA. I think it does a pretty good job, like just as well as probably any mid-level or maybe even senior associate could do. And it does a great job of like saying, these are the high risk issues with this NDA. These are the low risk issues. This is why these are high risk issues. These are the elements that could arise. Where, I mean, because it's operating in a vacuum, it doesn't have that business sense still, right? So it doesn't really know, okay, this is something that we can push back on with the counterparty, or this is something we can't, or this is a more nuanced take. So generally, like, pretty impressed. I think in terms of lawyers, I think you still need a lawyer. You still should have a lawyer sit there and make the judgment call and not rely on it out of the box. Yeah. Even though it probably does a decent job for multiple reasons, right? You don't want to be the one like taking the risk of getting it wrong. It's helpful to understand like the business case and the context and to understand, what you're doing. It's helpful to ensure that you are using it correctly so you don't breach attorney-client privilege, as you're doing it. Yeah. But I was, pretty impressed. I think it's a good tool, but use it carefully.
Yeah. Yeah. So last time around we spoke about vibe coding and
Yeah.
how our LinkedIn feeds are sort of flooded with that. For the past week and a half, it's been flooded with all opinions about the Anthropic legal plugin. Quite interesting, very different takes from different groups of people, maybe different interest groups of people. But I think it's worthwhile just doing a double click on how, like, what it actually is, right?
Yeah.
And I think I'm under the impression people are confused. Maybe I'm confused. But so, first of all, a plugin, right, is essentially almost like a wrapper around skills.
Yeah.
So it's doing a little bit more. It has the ability to give it more context. But at the core of it is a skill. And a skill is nothing new. Anthropic didn't invent it last week. They've been using this for coding for a whole lot of time. It's a very, very good idea to use in the context of agents, because at the core of it, a skill is a prompt. It's a markdown file, so it's a particular file format that is very easily readable for the agent. But what sets the skill apart from just a regular prompt is essentially a header, which gives almost like a very neat summary. So, and that way of orchestrating things is really useful because you can build multiple skills. And what does specifically not happen like it would with a very, very long prompt, all of that long prompt doesn't get loaded into the context window of the model, but the model only goes and looks at that summary. And only when, like, it basically looks here, these are the skills that are available to me based on the summary, and only when the user then basically inquires about something that's relating to that summary will it load the actual prompt and then start using it. But of course, the next thought then is it's still just a prompt, right? So if you want to use the Anthropic legal plugin for your NDAs, you can. It's pretty good, but it's not at all tailored to your business, to your needs, to your setup, to your jurisdiction, right? None of it.
Yeah.
You would have to tailor that yourself, right? So in that sense, only some things have changed. Fundamentally, nothing has changed, right? You still need to look at this. You still need to make sure that this actually fits your context. And sort of the extension of that is, and that's also where I see the whole thing breaking down a little bit, at least in the short run. The agent is only really capable when it has context of the business setting.
Yeah.
Right? So I tried the same thing. I played around with the NDA plugin a little bit, and yeah, pretty good, but zero commercial acumen. It was making suggestions, so I was just like, yeah, but that makes no sense at all. Like there's zero commercial risk here. Maybe technically I can see the argument. That's what the junior would do when they come back with essentially the precedent and say, well, but this is the list of clauses that we have to have, right? But that next step is not yet there. I suspect, though, if you give it business context, right, and not only in your prompt, but maybe a bit more, maybe you have actually some almost like a library built up of conversation history, of relevant details, I would probably do a pretty good job, right? And the comparison that I would draw out of the coding context is, so we had a meeting with Microsoft recently where my CTO basically went to Claude Code, inside Claude Cowork, and said, look, we have this meeting with Microsoft here, these 5 questions. I need a presentation so that I can walk them through that hour-long call and, include some additional questions, background questions. You have access to the repo where all our code is. Meaning we've done this together, this context, so give me this presentation. Yeah, 5 minutes later, this presentation came out and it was damn near perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Even Microsoft was impressed. So it's no silver bullet, but we're moving significantly into a different future, I think.
Yeah, the capability unlock it's always been there, but I guess just putting all the pieces together, you reach a tipping point where suddenly you saw the promise. Like you were saying before, like you could have built a pretty good facsimile of what it does today, and actually a better version, right? You can load it. You could have built your own kind of super prompt, loaded it with NDA playbooks, loaded it with commercial context with, this is my client, this is their considerations, this is what we need to think about. These are the ways that we want these clauses to deviate from the standard. This is what we really care about. So if this happens, make sure you highlight and push back. And you give it the full playbook, essentially. I can do that really well. What I think now what's happening is, especially with when you combine all these things together, and what I see happening now is Opus 4.6, and I haven't tested it, is supposed to have vastly superior agentic capabilities. And beyond just like, what does the word agentic mean? It's like, okay, you can use tools and other things. No, even beyond that, my understanding is Opus 4.6 can spin up its own agents. So it's beyond just, oh, I'm an agent, these are the tools I can use, and like, we've had that for a year and a half, a little bit more. It can start acting as the orchestrator. It can say, okay, there's this complex task.
Go solve it.
Yeah, I can go solve it. And to solve it, I need to spin up these little copies of me. So say there's this task I need to do. I need to make a little specialized version of me that does this. And I'll give it all these skills and these things, and it's going to go off and do that thing. And then I'm going to make another copy of me that does another specialty, and it's going to go off and do other things. I'm going to make another copy of me that does something else, and it's going to go off and do its own specialties. And I think that is going to result in, increasingly scary and, in both probably equal measures, scary and amazing things. Where if you give it the tools carefully, it can then go off and say, okay, what do I really need to understand? I understand the level 1 now. He's told me, analyze this, for example, NDA. Okay, I can go off and just give, last episode we talked about the averages. I can go off and I know kind of the best practices precedents that I need to do the level 1 analysis. And now I'm like really good at it. So I'm going to do that legal analysis really well. And now I'm going to spin off like a little business agent that's going to run off and read all of the relevant files and go search, okay, who are these people in this agreement?
What's the business context?
Yeah, what's the business context?
What do I need to know in order to tailor this better? Yeah.
And then just start building a little playbook on itself. Like, oh, these are the things that I should care about. These are the things I should care about. And you can imagine you could even go beyond that and you go start searching the web. Oh, what else has these counterparties gone into? How have they like blown up NDAs before? What are the risks here? Like, they could find like, oh, this founder has like been known for like taking stuff and like doing crazy things with it and building like competing products. So, oh, we really need to be careful, because even beyond that, now I can go start digging up like level 2 and level 3 and level 4 risks that are not apparent to anyone.
And by the way, also that no lawyer would have gone and tried to.
Because if you're constrained by the bill of hour, you're like, okay, well, this client's not going to pay me to like do some like really deep investigative searching on like the backgrounds of these counterparties. Like, it's lawyers are still bound by their commercial restraints. Where I'm getting paid by the hour, I know this client's going to freak out if I bill him $20,000 for an NDA. So I'll do my best and in my professional capacity, and it's good enough. And then if you have, some like Uber Claude thing, like legal agent that runs off and it spends $200 of compute, which is a lot of compute,
But probably not even.
but not even, maybe $100, maybe even $100 of compute, and then gives you this 18 level thing, and it just blows away kind of anything that a human can do. That's where things start getting really
Yeah,
really wild.
2 thoughts on this. So one I probably mentioned to everyone because I'm incredibly proud of that interaction. I was at a social event and then one of these senior Anthropic technical staff people was there. We were chatting. It was really interesting. And he said to me in November last year that he thinks that by the end of 26 we'll have sort of average human capability built into the systems. And now, 3 months on, I feel like, like these people who are sitting so close to these developments, and they see this every day, they do this as their job, right? And of course they see this in the coding environment, and that's kind of, they see what was possible today was not possible even 2 months ago, right? And like really orders of magnitude better. So they see that, and I think that educates their view forward, right? Whether that will hold, we'll see, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing is, in the past, I was kind of convinced that the cognitive burden shifts from kind of doing the work to checking the work. I think it's actually even different. There's definitely the checking element to it, but the other aspect that I hadn't previously considered in as much detail is you need to be really good at telling it what you want.
Yeah.
And
Instructing it.
And now some listeners, viewers will say, oh yeah, that's just prompt engineering. And that's true to some degree. And a really good model maybe doesn't need such a detailed prompt, right? But if you want to direct it really well, if you want to orchestrate it, then you need to actually really know where you're going. And that's not so easy, right?
It's management.
Yeah, and
right?
even there, right? Like sometimes you wonder, right? Like how much do they actually know? Do they know where they're going, right? And sometimes it feels like maybe they don't, right? And so just on a like as a personal aside, so I've recently switched to voice dictation. There's a tool, we're not getting paid for this, but I'll mention it anyways. It's called Whisperflow. I think it's got about 0 moat because I don't know, Apple will do it, Google will do it,
Yeah.
and probably
vibe
not,
code it in a day.
not even buy it. I don't know if you could that. It's really good. I was really impressed. I was really skeptical. And then it was shown to me, and I was just like, okay, this is awesome. I need this. I've stopped typing almost altogether. Like when I find myself in like in the MTR or some public place where I can't speak to it, I'm like borderline annoyed because then I have to type.
Okay.
And it's really good. It makes mistakes, but you can actually whisper to it, and it will still recognize it really well. And it puts proper sentences in, so you can really ramble, and it will kind of take out some of that nonsense that doesn't make sense and turn it into proper sentences, properly structured paragraphs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's really changed my way of working, but nonetheless, right? It's a different thing from not even just starting on a blank page and crafting some thought, which is a much more iterative process if we're honest with each other. But just sitting there and talking is actually, it reminds me, it's almost going full circle, right? I remember when I was a junior associate, we had a partner who was kind of traversing the hallways with his dictaphone.
Oh, I had the same.
Dictating entire agreements, which blew my mind because I wasn't sure how it was possible to have all of this in his head, right? And
he would say like, stop, scratch that, strike.
Yeah.
Or he would say like,
Yeah.
stop, strike out last sentence,
Yeah.
and then continue, right?
Or, here, like second paragraph, sentence 2, insert as follows, right? And he would do this for the entire agreement, which really blew my mind. And I feel like, let's see if we get there, but maybe that's coming full circle where we're going back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really. I mean, I had the same experience when I was younger. I worked for this old lawyer for a couple months, and he would do the same thing. He had a like little tape recorder, and he would just start dictating like full, complete thoughts. And he was a litigation guy, so he like would dictate like full briefs, right, just from like memory. And I was just like, for our generation, we're so used to like typing stuff, then like delete, and then like thinking about it and then being like, oh no, that was nonsense. And so if you looked at the way like probably I write or you write, it's just like I couldn't like sit there and like type a full 3-page thing at once. And so that's like a useful. So I want to try this app out, but
Send you a link.
yeah, thank you. But I wonder also, but back on your original point about, oh, it's just prompt engineering, and people like scoff at that. And it's, if you think about it, okay, what you're doing is you're teaching something incredibly, or you're telling something incredibly powerful and incredibly talented to do work for you. And my point about that's management is that it's management. If you are a manager of people, you want to get the most out of your people, you also have to think about, okay, how am I going to instruct? What are my capabilities of the people I've hired? How am I going to instruct them to do their jobs? What are their limitations? How do I redirect them? And you find in the real world, actually management is a difficult job to do it properly. A lot of people are terrible managers, right? They don't incentivize their people properly. They don't instruct them properly. They either micromanage too much, or they are too hands off. They don't, there's just the whole slew of, everyone has numerous stories of terrible bosses and very few stories of great bosses. and there's management books written about this all over the place, and no one like scoffs at you, and it's just like, oh, that's just management, right? Like anyone can do that. And I feel like prompt engineering, you would say kind of prompt engineering, but it's not that. It's okay, you've given me this incredibly powerful tool that now can do a lot. How am I going to instruct it and structure what I want it to do and the work that I want it to do? Do I understand its capabilities? Do I understand now like the dangers it can do, because it's incredibly powerful? Like if I give it my entire computer, it may just go off and do this, exfiltrate all my data unwittingly, but it can do it. It may go off and start like shit posting people on social media, right? When it gets upset. How do I put guardrails around what I want it to do? How do I instruct it and make sure that its goal is aligned with my goal? And like you're saying, that's hard. That's a really hard thing, because I think as people, we understand people intuitively, more or less, hopefully.
Some people do.
Some people do that. And generally those people make better bosses. Not that many people understand these AI models intuitively. That's even harder. And then, right? And then you stack on top of that, oh, they're also getting better and changing. Their capabilities are evolving every single day.
And I have to say that shift to voice has really changed my way of interacting with it, because when you can talk to it, I don't have it talking back to me yet, but when you can talk to it and you can really go sort of in this loop of building a plan, what are we doing, right? And it feeds in its ideas, its thoughts. And often it comes up with things I didn't think of, right? Like some edge case, some consideration that I hadn't actually considered. And that gets pretty cool.
So what is the difference between that tool and if you just kind of enable like voice on Claude or something?
The dictation on any of them that's built in is kind of dumb. It just takes any sound that if somebody just walks past you and screams something in the background, it'll take that too. And it doesn't quite as structure. Like sometimes now I dictate emails.
Yeah.
And it will be hi N, comma, new line. Let's make up let's set a time for whatever meeting, and then salutation, all of this. Like it's really good.
Cool. We're gonna try it out.
We should get them to sponsor us, since
we have so many listeners. Listen and subscribe. The next step for that is sub vocalization, right? Where you have a little patch like stuck to your jawbone. And so
like
instead of
the SWAT team
or on your throat. So instead of even having to talk, if you're on the subway, you can just kind of sub vocalize to it. And then you have bone conduction earpiece over here, so it can talk back to you.
Yeah.
And then we'll just see people just like mumbling to themselves and be like, that guy, Mateus he's a crazy person. He's like,
Yeah. And you give it some Ray-Ban, the Meta Ray-Ban glasses.
You can see, we're in the world of Samantha already from her, right? We're not that far away.
Not that far away.
A matter of months. So Claude Cowork has come out. Everyone has seen what it can do. And we've talked for a lot about the capabilities of it. And the market is kind of like thrown up on two segments of companies in the last week more severely, but overall in the last year. In the last year, the services and consulting firms have sold off a lot. So like Gartner, which is like the publicly traded strategy firm, has lost something like 70% of its market value in the last year. And then more recently, there's all of these SaaS companies that have sold off, like HubSpot. HubSpot is down like 30 or 40% in the last year. Salesforce is down a lot. Kind of every single SaaS company has dropped in value a lot. And I think it's because for two things, right? Like one, Claude is just like, people think it's like the end of software. And maybe also like software has been driving the market a lot recently, and it was time for a little bit of sell off. But what doesn't really make sense is also the AI companies have been selling off. Like NVIDIA has been selling off, and Microsoft has been selling off because people are worried about OpenAI. And so you can't really have both, right? You can't have both. AI is going to eat the world, and so all these software companies are going to go away. But at the same time, AI is just this giant bubble. And right?
Yeah, irrationally excited on the one hand about AI, and at the same time shit scared, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
how is this going to go? And it's quite interesting to see how, yeah, both of these things happening at the same time and coming together. In a similar vein, did you see that KPMG actually talked their auditor, Grant Thornton, down from the fees that they were willing to pay for their annual audit, because they said, well, you're using AI, you should
Give us a discount.
give us a discount. Yeah. So that's definitely hitting those big companies as well, right? It's starting. It feels like February 26 feels different from
Yeah, but there's still
even
this
September.
gap, right? So you were talking about this was it IBM productivity survey?
Yeah, Harvard Business Review. Yeah, I mean, they've basically went and talked to a software company and said, okay, well, let's just talk to all your people. You're all using all these tools all the
Yeah.
time. How is it impacting your work? And quite interesting outcome results, because they've interviewed 200 people and everybody says, well, the lines of work are shifting. I'm starting to do things that I would have just outright rejected from doing 6 months ago, because I would have just said, sorry, I don't know the first damn thing about this. You go find someone else. That's not my problem. So that's the first thing they found. So it's actually sort of rescoping roles. Additionally, people have found that it's a bit of the BlackBerry effect, where that seemed to be a really liberating thing. I no longer need to sit at my desk to write emails. I can just write emails from anywhere. Similarly, now the people are not constrained to their desk to do work, because they can just talk to their agent from their phone, and they do it while they're sitting at home during dinner on the couch watching TV. And all of that has just really seemingly intensified work, right? You take that plus the continuous context switching, because go try Cowork, and if you give it a complicated task, it'll be off for 5, 8, 10, 15 minutes. Claude Code could be off for an hour doing something, right? And so what do you do in the meantime? Okay, maybe you have another agent, so you need to tend to that. But you're constantly context switching back and forth between these tasks, and it's a totally different work environment. Not less work, maybe not even more productivity, just like a different level of intensity almost.
Yeah.
Right? And actually, sorry, one more thing. What stuck out to me was, and I've experienced this myself too, people are excited to use these tools. Like it becomes late. It's late in the day, and you really know you should be going to bed, but it's actually kind of fun, and you're making progress, and just one more turn, right? And it's the same thing. Like that's also what they found. Right? Like people were excited to use it. They took on more work than they previously would, and they just spend more and more time.
Because it's almost an instant gratification of like, look how much work I've done.
Yeah.
And you get that's really interesting. Actually, you get a dopamine hit from it's a productivity dopamine hit from like, oh, this agent just did all this work. And like, I did all this work. I told this agent to do all this work.
Yeah. I was the manager. Yeah. Yeah, it's this agency point that we touched on before, right? Like if you have agency, if you think you can make a change in the world, then these tools are really good for you.
Yeah. And you have that kind of predilection already where you get dopamine hits from getting work done. And that's what causes workaholism. And I think as entrepreneurial founders, we probably are especially susceptible to that kind of
Same
like,
thing.
right? So it's dangerous. And what it made me think of, like all, like kind of everything that's happening in the last week where things seem to be accelerating really quickly. It's only still been like 2.5 years since GPT-3 came out. And it made me go back. And today I looked at the history of AOL, because I was thinking like, oh, okay, if we analogize AI to the .com era, and if everyone's like, oh, 2026 is the year that the AI bust is going to happen because of the markets and all these other things have been happening recently. AOL came out. They were another company before, but they rebranded as AOL in 1989, and AOL got kind of popular in from there, like 1990, 1991. There's the Tom Hanks movie, You've Got Mail. And the kind of the .com takeoff was a good 10 years before it really got into bubble territory. 10, 12 years, right? If you count 1989, kind of where it starts, in 2001 to where it peaks, that was a 12-year process. even if you say, okay, AI is accelerated because things are moving faster now, I'm not sure if that's true. We're only 2 years in, 2.5 years in. And so is there a bubble? Is there overcapacity? Like, Google issuing a 100-year bond to build giant data centers everywhere, like CapEx of these huge companies are reaching huge levels. I don't know, right? At the same time, these products are getting a lot better. The capabilities are accelerating. So I guess my view is we're still really early days.
Agree. I think I recently read a piece where they were saying that it feels like maybe actually progress is accelerating, just only going through, okay, so we had the transformer and then we made that work, and then scaling seemed to work. So just let's scale up training. And that kind of then got to the point that it was only diminishing returns, can't scale indefinitely, but then people figured out, okay, we could actually spend the models thinking much more time. So we moved to inference scaling, right? Reinforcement learning is being scaled. So there's people
multimodal,
we're shifting constantly to other ideas. I'm still of the opinion that there's many more things that need to be explored for true AGI. Nonetheless, right? Like the pace with which things are getting better is astonishing. And that was actually, to be honest, coming back on my earlier point, my fanboy moment, the Anthropic researcher, he was just saying, look, like everything we touch in the lab is like turns to gold essentially.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have enough bandwidth to do all the things that we can already think about. And it feels a lot like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Endorsements. You had
endorsements. Yeah, I have something really fun. A podcast that I listen to all the time when I get around to it, because there's a lot of episodes. 99% Invisible. It's a really fun show. They cover the things that are typically invisible and kind of make sense of them and talk about them and bring them to light. And they had a really, really cool episode on the M-Dash. And actually I had my niece recently got scolded at school because her essay was obviously generated by ChatGPT because she used an M-Dash. And she was like, no.
I use M-dashes all the time before.
Didn't, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of the point they're making where they're saying, well, the thing is, when you actually look back into classic literature like Jane Austen and such, Pride and Prejudice apparently has like some 6,000 M-dashes, right?
Yeah.
So it was really a very useful grammatical tool.
David Foster Wallace loves the M-dash, right? His writing is full of like good little is full of them. I mean, that's why the models use it so much too.
Exactly. That's why the models use them, right? And it's a really fun episode. And sort of piggybacking on that, they also call attention to a project out of Australia, I think, where people have now created an M-dash, which looks a little bit like a squiggly line. So it's the M-dash with sort of curved edges. And
tilde, isn't that just
like a tilde, but
in the middle,
but longer.
Okay.
And the point is, no model has access to these,
so you can use that one.
So you can use that
the
one
next version of the
to
model.
show that this is human generated text. Pretty fun.
I used a human M-dash, not a machine M-dash.
Yeah.
That's really I have to check that episode out because I love the M-dash and I find myself like, oh no,
Can't use it.
Yeah, I gotta make it into a full stop or use a comma here or like a semicolon. I started reading the book you recommended recently, the consciousness, nature of consciousness and the bicameral mind, like halfway through.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And the entire, I'm not sure how much I agree with this, even though I love the concept of it, is that essentially language has created consciousness, the written language specifically, not even spoken language, but before we had written language, we hallucinated consciousness as gods. And then after we had written language, we kind of internalized it and it became a part of ourselves. I think that's still like a pretty far-fetched, but I love the concept of it. And this is like a much longer conversation for another episode. But if that's true, if written language was the vector for consciousness, then what is AI? When AI is just a construct of written language, then can you say, by definition, then isn't AI, there's not a debate on whether AI is conscious or not. It's that we are actually imperfectly conscious because we are imperfectly built from language, but AI should be perfectly conscious because it's built
On all language.
on all language. I just find that so interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I'm not sure I'm prepared for that conversation because I think I'm not knowledgeable enough. But yeah, we should have it.
Awesome. All right.
Awesome. Good to
See
see
you
you, my
next
friend.
time.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.